Welcome to JavaScript Testing Part 2. Let's consider a function to be tested called getAllPosts. We're going to use Axios to make a GET request to our posts endpoint, and it will return an array of posts. Now let's test that function. We're going to check that it does actually return an array of posts to us. So we'll call getAllPosts, and then check that the value is an instance of array. What will happen when this test is run? Let's go take a look. Now I'm in the Repl looking at my test for the post function. When I run it, I expect this to pass because my getAllPosts function returns an array. Let's see what actually happens. After a minute, I'm seeing that the equivalence ended up being false. This tells me that whatever's being returned by getAllPosts is not actually an instance of array. If it's not an array, let's console log posts and see what we're actually getting back. Okay, here I'm seeing promise pending. So my request out to the URL hasn't actually resolved into an array of posts yet. I need to tell Jest to wait for it. One way to fix this issue is to use the done callback to explicitly tell Jest when we're finished. And for this, I'm going to need to convert this to use then so that the promise resolves before we call our expect. We'll pop this up here. After this expect, we're done with our tests, and so we call done. Let's run this and see what we get. All right, so here we're seeing that this expect passes. We are getting an array of posts. And just to prove that, I'm going to print the posts out. Man, that's a lot of data. Another way that we can fix this problem is using the async await syntax. The first thing I need to do is declare that this is an async function, and then add an await before my getAllPosts call to tell JavaScript to wait for the promise to resolve before moving on to my expect. Let's run that and see what we get. Just like with the done syntax, since we're now waiting for the promise to resolve, we're able to check that we're getting an array like we expect to. There are two common ways to test asynchronously. Traditionally, when testing callbacks, the test runner actually passes a special callback into your test. Everybody calls it done. And Wagstaff said to tell you, and I quote, "You're a dumbass if you call it something other than done," unquote. The test runner knows when you're done because you explicitly tell it you're done by calling the done function. Alternatively, you can use the new and improved syntax, async and await. Everybody loves async and await because it looks pretty close to the way it would look synchronously. Half of the battle with reading documentation and blogs is getting in tune with the vocabulary. Each test suite describes a function or part of a function. Each test validates a behavior of that function. And within each test, you will have one or more expectations. For an example of multiple expectations in a single test, look at the two expects in the CalcFuel example. When you run Jest on the command line, like you did in your homework, Jest is the test runner. It will run one or more test files, but how does it know which files to run? By default, it runs all files that end with .test.js in the specified folder. You can customize which files Jest runs in configuration. Each test file will contain one or more suites, and each suite will contain one or more tests. And as we saw a couple slides ago, each test can have one or more expectations.